And so it was so loud that we just both had like separate headphones on and we're just doing our own thing. Whereas in this vehicle, we can listen to an audible book, music, we can have a conversation.
We can listen to Tiny House Podcast.
We can listen to Tiny House Podcast.
Welcome to the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast, the show where you learn how to plan, build, and live the tiny lifestyle. My guests today are Ray and Trevor of Wazumu Life. Would you buy a 30-year-old military vehicle that breaks down all the time but can go anywhere? My guests today are Ray and Trevor of Wazumu Life, and they did just that. They're here to tell us about their fascinating lifestyle, now on their second, less breakdown-prone, go-anywhere tiny house rig. I hope you stick around. But before we get started, did you know that I personally send Tiny House newsletter every week on Tuesdays? It's called Tiny Tuesdays, and it's a weekly email with Tiny House news, interviews, photos, and resources. It's free to subscribe, and I even share sneak peeks of things that are coming up, ask for feedback about upcoming podcast guests, and more. It's really the best place to keep a pulse on what I'm doing in the tiny house space and also stay informed of what's going on in the tiny house movement. To sign up, go to thetinyhouse.net/newsletter, where you can sign up for the Tiny Tuesdays newsletter. And of course, you can unsubscribe at any time. I will never send you spam. And if you ever don't want to receive emails, it's easy to unsubscribe. So again, that's thetinyhouse.net/newsletter. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy next week's Tiny Tuesdays newsletter. All right, I am here with Ray and Trevor of Wazumu Life. Ray and Trevor have been on and off the road full-time for the past 3 years. They like to think they got into road life just before it became popular back in 2019, pre-COVID. Trevor is a professional stuntman and special effects coordinator for film and television, but his full-time job these days is figuring out how to build and run their current off-roading tiny house. Ray is a photographer and marketing specialist who works remotely for a few different companies. Environmental conscious, humanitarians, and adventure driven, they don't have any plans to slow down anytime soon. Ray and Trevor, welcome to the show.
Woo! Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So I guess my first question for you is what is a Wazimu? What is Wazumu Life?
What is a Wazimu? I like that.
I know, I do too. So Wazimu means madness in Swahili. Trevor and I, back in 2008, were interviewing for a job in Uganda. And some of the kids in the area that we were working at in Uganda called Trevor Crazy White Man in Swahili. And roughly translated, crazy madness is Wazimu. And around that time is when we won the bid for the truck that is now our home. And so
not this current truck.
Yeah, this is our second one. But our original
truck.
build was an LMTV one.
It was an LMTV N1078. It was a retired troop carrier out of Daytona. So big tan, beautiful beast, 47-inch tires, all that. And after, a year of figuring out what we wanted to do in 6 weeks of, bloody knuckles, we came up with the first build and
decided to name it Crazy, but Wazimu sounded cooler than crazy or the word madness. So
yeah,
Wazimu.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then my question, what is a Wazimu, was wrong. Just what is Wazimu? So it's crazy. It's madness.
Well, I guess Trevor is a Wazimu.
Yeah. I mean, our whole idea behind it was that we're going against like societal norms. We're going against the grain of, the white picket fence in front of the house, a chicken in every pot, a car in every driveway. We'd much rather just kind of do our own thing. We work when we need to work. We live where we want to live. And we enjoy so much more of not only what this country and hopefully soon enough many other countries offer, but what we can do in our own relationship, being this close to each other and just out there and pursuing stuff. And instead of, I have to get up at, 5:30 every morning to make sure I get to the gym, to make sure I get to the gym or get to work. And then I'm always going to stay an hour and a half to 2 hours longer to set myself up for the next day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the grind is great. The grind is awesome. But man, after 21 years in the industry I've been in and other industries and Ray doing everything she does, we're just like, this is just not enjoyable when we could easily put in, 15 to 20 hours a week and live a very good, healthy life and still put away a couple bucks every year for our own retirement versus, working 60 to 80 hours a week and not even really knowing each other.
We were looking for a different kind of challenge that kind of took us out of the social norm. But I'd like to preference that this was a way cooler and weirder idea back in 2018. I feel like COVID sort of really populated the van life community, and now I feel like it's not that weird. But, back when we were first doing it, we were definitely an odd bunch in our community.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I feel like being in a vehicle that's so suited to being off-road is kind of a niche within a niche, like, of the van life community.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. I mean, this truck right now, so we sold the old one, the LMTV, which was an off-road purpose-driven built vehicle, right? Whereas now we're in a GMC, 2008 GMC C7500, which was a snowplow dump truck out of Maryland. So it already had a four-wheel drive conversion on it. So, I did a ton of work to even change that, but we stayed in the realm of the four-wheel drive because of the locations we want to get to. I mean, right now we're, on the Boulevard Peninsula in Texas at Crystal Beach, and we can drive on the beach. We're 20,000 pounds. Yeah, we're 127 square foot little four-wheel drive truck. But everywhere else we go, I mean, all of our van life friends that have two-wheel drive, it's like, yeah, they can go on the beach too, as long as it's hard packed. Whereas if that's a really cool spot, another mile up there, but we can walk there, we can't get there.
Yeah.
That was important for us. I want to be able to get 10 steps farther away from the massive group of people to really just, kind of find that peace to where I can wake up every morning and not look at my neighbor. I can see the waves, or I can see the desert, or I can see the cliffs or the forest. And that to me was more important. It's also why we did a four-wheel drive, where this time I was considering doing a school bus because I had converted a bus before.
Okay.
And I really liked that conversion, but it just wouldn't have been possible to do half the stuff we wanted to do or we've already done in this truck.
Yeah, simply put, we wanted something that could go up a mountain just as easily as it could drive on the road comfortably and park on the beach.
Yep.
Got it. So was your last rig a little bit less suited to driving on the road?
Yes. Yeah, time and time again. So that truck is an awesome truck. And for anybody who's listening, if you go out and get yourself an LMTV, good for you. I applaud you. You're going to learn how it feels to break your knuckles. Because those trucks, as cool as they are, have problem after problem after problem. And unless you're either going in as an electrician or a full-time mechanic and just ripping out the nonsense that the military made sure they put in, because every one of their systems has at least 3 redundancies.
Oh boy.
And if one of those redundancies fail, go ahead.
No, I just said, oh boy.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So if one of those redundancies fail because it's an older vehicle, the other 3 just crap out. So you can't find where the problem is, which was it just drove me nuts. And I'm fine with working on a vehicle. I built them both, but not being able to figure it out and the rat's nest of wiring and all that kind of stuff that they did. And nobody will tell you how to find your problems because nobody knows. And then if you want a part, I mean, our alternator went bad on our truck 3 times, and it was $1,800 to replace every time. Whereas the alternator on this truck is $180.
Wow. Okay.
And so if you happen to have the right person who can get you an alternator who can fix the system, that's awesome. But not only did I not have that knowledge from the, a military mechanical standpoint, I'm willing to do anything, but I need somebody to help. And so many people they also didn't understand.
From a practical standpoint, too, it was a very loud vehicle. So we basically got used to driving for hours and hours at a time in just total silence because you sit right on top of the engine in that model or vehicle.
Wow.
And so it was so loud that we just both had like separate headphones on and we're just doing our own thing. Whereas in this vehicle, we can listen to an audible book, music, we can have a conversation.
We can listen to Tiny House podcast.
We can listen to Tiny House podcast. So yeah, this one, I mean, now having experienced this vehicle, I would definitely never go back.
But with what you said earlier, though, like, so the LMTV is a 10 out of 10 off-road, but it was like a 3 out of 10 on the on-road.
Mm-hmm.
We were limited by, our height restriction, our width restriction, our weight restrictions. And then it just didn't go fast. You hit 55 and you were lucky. Oof. Whereas the truck we're in now is, I would say, like a 6 out of 10 on the road.
Yeah, and turtles were passing us in the LMTV, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Going uphill was a struggle.
Yeah. But this one's also a 6 out of 10 off-road, so yeah, we lost a little bit, on the off-road thing, but we didn't get to experience a lot of the off-road stuff ultimately because we couldn't afford, the financial, like just necessity to really bring the motor and the electronics in that truck up to the level that we wanted them to be at. Whereas this truck, we're starting at a level, like I said, less off-road, more on-road, but just that worked.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to get a little bit more versatility, to be able to travel on the road, and still have something that's pretty great off-road.
Yeah.
So, I would say, I don't know how long ago, I'm going to say a year ago, I interviewed a guy, Tom Roscoe, who built a really cool go anywhere ambulance conversion.
Yeah.
We love ambulance conversion.
And so looking at your two rigs, like one of the things that kind of struck me about the ambulance is that it essentially the cabin is done. You've got this box, it's insulated, and then you can just build out the inside however you want.
Sure.
From pictures of your build, it looks like you're actually building the physical structure on the back of this vehicle as well as, finishing it out. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Start to finish, it was all me. It took Trevor 5 months to build. So when we first bought it, it was just that snowplow truck that had the dump bed thing on the back. So we took that off, and Trevor fabricated the entire shell of the box, and we were able to lift that with some special machine. Why don't you just take this one?
Okay. So let's go off on a side thing real quick. So I believe there's a difference between wealthy and rich. Mm-hmm. And we are very wealthy in the people that are around us. We are not wealthy in finances, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. The people around us that were able to kind of tap in on this project were very wealthy and rich at the same time. And so they were willing to give us space and time and knowledge, which are three things that are more important than money. Mm-hmm. Because, well, we didn't have any of them. So Robert Ashby Crenshaw Trucking out of Richmond, Virginia. Wow. Virginia. Been in Texas too long. He not only gave us space, but he gave me an ear. So every time, I had a question or a concern, whether it was how I'm building something, tensillary strengths or something about the truck, I could bug him and talk to him. And he gave me that time, which was just invaluable. But he also collected us. So we're now a story that he can pass on and he gets to tell other people about and show pictures about it. So it's really just been awesome for both of us. But with that, he gave us full access to his shop, which means he had a 120,000 square foot truck company shop. There was 30 or 40 big rigs being built.
Wow. Some
just being repaired, other completely custom, really cool builds. And he just said, here's your bay. Do whatever the heck you want.
Yeah, needless to say, the build would have taken twice as long and cost twice as much had we not had Robert in our community kind of helping us. But Trevor did build the whole thing, start to finish, plumbing, electric, fabrication, right down to the cabinetry and painting.
Wow.
It took him 5 months. He started in October, and we finished the second week in March.
Nice. Of this year?
Yes. So October 2021 and then March 2022.
Yeah, it was
awesome.
the end of October.
Yeah.
And so is this, I flipped through the your Insta story of the Wazi 2 build that shows some of the progress. So it looks like you basically fabricated a metal box, a chassis even for it, and then built it out. Can you talk about, you don't have to get too technical, but like, what are the walls made of? How is it insulated? What is this box that you live in?
Yeah. So I went off of the first build. The first build, my thought was the LMTVs are already top heavy.
Mm-hmm.
If I build a box on the back of this thing and we're off-roading and we tip over, we're all going to die. It's just going to roll and crush. And, it's just horrible. So I built a steel box, fully reinforced C-channel on every angle, a lot of apexing in that, and subframe and everything. And that whole rig was, or that whole setup, had an articulation point in the center so that I had two hard points in the rear. It was able to flex both the subframe and the frame of the truck separately so that we didn't have any worry of torsion and breaking welds or breaking bolts. This truck, I did the exact same thing. The subframe on this one is not an internal or hidden subframe. It's outside the actual box. So the box itself is welded to it, and that subframe sits on the original truck frame. So it gives us a little bit more height on the underneath. But with that, all of our tanks are on the inside this time, so I didn't have to worry about that height issue. So we are still at 12 foot 2 inches total tall, which is important because we didn't want to go over under bridges and get stuck. But anyways, you went back. So this whole thing is all steel. The walls are all steel. It's all C-channel. The insulation is 3-inch closed cell foam with vapor barrier. I added vapor barrier on the inside, and then all the walls caulked and sealed. So hopefully it's a HVAC tech dream.
The plan is to take it to Alaska. We want to spend a couple months in Banff and then go out to Alaska, which was part of the reason why we sold the original build. Like Trevor just said, all of the pipes and water tank are inside on this one, whereas in the last one, they were on the outside to create more space. But anytime we were in extreme temperatures, particularly cold temperatures, the pipes would freeze, and it was like a total nightmare to try to warm them back up and use water. So we wanted to make sure this one was total expedition Alaska ready. So that was kind of one of the main priorities why we sold the last one and built this one.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And so speaking of cold climates, how are you heating this space? Although it sounds like right now you maybe aren't using the heat because you're in a warm place, maybe. But
yeah, it's hot in Texas right now.
So we've got two options. We have a mini split HVAC that's powered by 1,850 watts of solar.
Okay.
So we haven't had any issues whatsoever yet. We've seen a couple 14-degree nights, and we didn't even, other than opening the door, we're good. But if we want to get romantic,
my favorite feature,
we can use the hardwood stove that I made out of a really old propane tank that was for like a 60s or 70s forklift.
It's so cute. I mean, it's badass, but it's really cute.
So we can use that either or. Sometimes we use them both. Sometimes, usually when we use the hardwood stove, though, if that thing burns for more than 15 minutes, both Lewis, our English Bulldog, and Ray are both complaining as to how hot it is. So then we open all the windows and everybody freezes, and I'm like, well, why did I light the fire?
We're all allergic to heat there.
Yeah.
The propane tank fire stove thing is probably the coolest feature. I mean, he built everything with his hands, but that one's probably my favorite. It was like this grungy propane tank, and I was totally unsure about it. And he just cleaned the whole thing out and, made it look very cool.
I'll make sure to post a photo of it on the show notes.
Yes, you definitely have to. It's got like a little glass piece so you can even see the flame, which was my request, and I love it. It's very romantic.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you've got to see the flame because that really that's what makes the wood stove romantic. You don't get that nice flicker.
Yes, well, and like the mental aspect, I feel like I'm getting warmer because I can see the fire.
So how do you decide? It sounds like Alaska is a goal for you, but how do you decide where to travel and like how far are you traveling in a day or a week or a month or just kind of give us a sense of like what your lifestyle is like.
Well, so we're again, that whole like us being slightly different societal.
Yeah.
Just the other day, we were driving through Tennessee, and a guy who'd been apparently following the build, messaged us and was just like, "Hey, do you like long distance shooting?" I was like, "Well, I mean, I don't know. Sure." Like, and he was like, "Well, I got a competition. It's like nothing but professionals. Do you want to come out and shoot?" I was like, do you want, like, I was so confused because one, I mean, I haven't done that kind of stuff. And two, you want me to go and compete against professionals. Like, this is going to be nuts, but hey, let's try it. We're so open to new experiences. And so we ended up hanging out in Tennessee for 4 more days that we wanted to. We ended up staying at an alpaca farm that just happened to be really close to the shooting range. And then we got to shoot with all these professional people. And I mean, everybody was so nice and so cool. We just had a blast.
Every day is different on the road, and part of our mentality is just to say yes. So that's one thing that we actually love about social media is it gives you this huge community all over, not just the country, but the world. So anytime we go through a state and somebody that's following us or that we follow will like reach out and just say, "Hey, do you want to park here? Do you want to do this really cool thing?" We're actually headed to Houston this weekend to potentially, fly in some guy's private plane. So that just reached out to so every day is different, and the best part about the lifestyle is that you get to just say yes and kind of go wherever the road takes you.
Oh yeah,
very cool. Yeah,
so we don't want to plan, to answer your question.
There's
no plan.
There's no plan. You just kind of follow where the experience takes you.
Yeah, like we've got a couple like festivals that we keep our eye on, and people we want to meet up with. My sister's getting married in Moab in May, so we're going to be in Moab in May, and then we'll be back on the East Coast for another friend's wedding in Florida. But other than things like that, we're just sort of flying by the seat of our pants.
Nice.
Yeah.
Or driving
by the seat of your pants. How, when you do kind of go off road and you're presumably away from stores and food and supplies, how long can you kind of be out boondocking or be out away from civilization in your rig?
We spent almost a month, I think, in the Sedona Desert in 2019 off the grid, just living off like solar panels and the groceries that we had and everything. So, and we probably could have gone a little bit longer. We had a 90-gallon water tank, and that if we're conservative with that, we could last at least a month for sure, since we've done that. But I don't know.
I mean, I think one of the bigger issues for us is this one thing about it. We're trying to be healthier. So like no fast food, try to eat as little food that has preservatives in it and all that kind of stuff. Just trying.
Yep.
Obviously in a lot of situations it's not possible. But that's a big issue when it comes to longevity, because fresh food that doesn't need to be refrigerated, all that kind of stuff is those crazy bad for you foods. They're also the foods that you can just sit in the pantry and let them sit up there for 2 years and open them up and they're still perfect.
Yeah, and you're also very limited on space, obviously. So our refrigerator is a fraction of what a normal person's refrigerator would be. So you have to be super thoughtful in everything you do. That's one of the things I love about the lifestyle, but it's also one of the frustrating things about it is everything, including grocery shopping and cooking and all of those things, have to be so intentional, because if food goes bad, it's frustrating because it just took up all of the space and money, obviously, but it's, you just have to be very intentional. So it is kind of tough eating healthy and living healthy, like Trevor said, because everything goes bad so much quicker. And then, the space.
Yeah, if we didn't have to worry about food, if we were just fine with, canned soup and ramen noodles, I mean, we don't need to connect to any kind of an electrical source. We have a backup generator with us at all times if we needed it.
Compost toilet. And then if I can get near a water source, I even have, a drop-in sump pump I can pump into our tanks. We have multiple filters for everything. We're very self-sufficient if we need to be.
Yeah. So doomsday world and all that kind of stuff.
Zombie apocalypse, you want to be on our team.
I'm good.
Yeah, no, I'm joining your team for the zombie apocalypse.
Yes, we're recruiting.
Just let me know when it's coming.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out.
I mean, I did work on The Walking Dead, but they didn't really tell me either. So.
Well, we're in Texas. There's been a lot of UFO sightings out here. So.
Ooh, I'm all about UFOs.
So you have a dog that travels with you, Lewis. Tell us about Lewis.
You can maybe hear him snoring in the background ever so faintly. I don't know if you've ever had any experience with English Bulldogs, but they have the most personality.
Mm-hmm.
We've worked in a lot of shelters. We both owned numerous breeds of dogs. And I would say that Lewis, correct me if I'm wrong, has the most personality of all the dogs that I've ever been around.
I don't know if he's got the most personality. He's definitely got the most spice.
Yeah, he's very sassy.
He's a dick. I love that dog, man. But if he doesn't want to do something, he ain't going to do it.
He's very stubborn. He's also a service dog, so he goes with me everywhere.
Okay.
So, which is pretty great. He's a great road life dog. Just sleeps, does whatever we're doing. If we're sleeping, he's sleeping. If we're playing, he wants to play. He just kind of reads the room.
Yep. Well, so I actually, I adopted a basset hound about a year ago named Parsnip, and he's also super sleepy and really stubborn. So I think Lewis and Parsnip would be friends, or they would nap together.
Parsnip, that's such a good name.
Parsnip is such a good name.
I know. I'm sad. He's usually right. He's usually like right behind me, sleeping on this couch. But I think he's out for a walk with my wife.
Dang, I would love to see him. That's so fun.
Good.
Yeah. So that's interesting because it's like, I know a lot of people here in Vermont are like, and I'm into it too, like backcountry skiing and like various mountain adventuring. And like a lot of people pick a dog that like can go backcountry skiing with them, like a husky or like, you know, a retriever, something that can like run through the woods for miles and miles. And I kind of was like, I would rather have a dog that just is just really chill. And then he'll just be there when I get home.
You totally get it. I don't need like all the ruckus of a husky in 127 square feet just going nuts for the like 5 hours a day we're driving. Lewis just sleeps the whole time.
That's awesome.
Way less of a mess.
That's like the I don't know if you ever met like a rescue greyhound. They're super docile, and you think of them as like being, you know, they're greyhounds. They're super fast and they run, but they run really, really fast for like 8 minutes and then sleep the rest of the time.
That's Lewis to a T. 5 minutes of playtime a day is all he needs. I mean, he literally has been sleeping all day, and now he's sleeping more.
Well, okay. To be fair, we took him for a lap around the grocery store.
That's true. Really took it out of him.
So now he's done for at least 2 days.
Yeah,
that can be very tiring.
It's exhausting.
So 100, how many square feet did you say? 120?
127.
127. So that's a very small space, certainly smaller than most tiny houses on wheels now. Do you have, I think
it's bigger than a van.
It's bigger than a van, it's true. And you can stand up inside of it, which is very nice. Your bed is on some kind of lift system?
So that was the last build.
Okay.
We had the whole thing. It was on a hand crank. She wanted, and I'm not trying to throw her under the bus.
No, just do it. Throw me right on under that.
She wanted an area to entertain, and I'm going to say that again.
People.
In 127 square feet, she had to have an entertaining space.
Listen, you have to learn the lifestyle. I didn't know that you had to give up like dinner parties when you move into a tiny house. That was a learning thing.
So eventually, you know, we realized that like people want to come in, check it out, then we'll go into their house, check theirs out, then we'll all hang out outside.
Yeah.
So after a while, we realized cranking the bed up and cranking it down was just a pain in the butt. So we completely deleted the crank system. It became storage underneath. And on this build, underneath, I have the electrical cabinet because we have 600 amp hour batteries. We got a transformer, converter, charger, all that kind of stuff that controls our electrical system. And then we have our 75-gallon fresh water tank, our filter, our pump, and the hot water heater. That's all under the bed.
Yeah, the bed's permanently in place. For anybody listening who's doing a build, I do not recommend doing a crank system bed. If you have the money for one of those like push button beds where it just goes up and down, more power to you.
The Happy Jacks.
Mm-hmm. But cranking your bed up and down every day is very annoying because it's something I always tell everyone, if you can't access an everyday item within 5 seconds, it's going to irritate the crap out of you in this lifestyle.
Yeah.
Your bed is something you use every day. So you just need to be able to have access to it or it's going to drive you nuts.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel the same way, even in my tiny house with the loft being up a ladder. Just climbing up that ladder gets annoying because it kind of slows you down. And that's where we stored our clothes, is like up in the closets. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I have a couple more questions for you. You posted a recent post on Instagram. It's a video that says compost versus black tank. And you've already mentioned that, your current build has a compost toilet. Did the first build have a black tank?
I'm very passionate about this question, Ethan. I'm so glad you asked.
Okay, let's talk about poop.
So the first build, before Trevor has a chance to throw me under the bus again.
Yeah.
Throw him under the bus. Trevor was like, we need a compost toilet, right? And I'm like, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life. Don't talk to me about poop in general.
All right, I'm going to jump in here real quick.
Toilet.
I'm going to jump in here real quick. So I did research for over a year. And originally, before I even met Ray, I was going to convert my pickup because I was racing in the National Enduro Series to hold 2 motorcycles in the back and then a pop-up tent on top with a little refrigerator. And that was about it. And researched the crap out of that. And then I got hired to build a school bus. So I researched the crap out of that. And then I met Ray. And years later, we ended up deciding to do it ourselves. So I'm researching like crazy.
Okay, researcher. So he's all, listen, I've done the research and I'm telling you the compost toilet's the way to go. And I'm like, that's the most disgusting thing ever. I'm not turning my poop in dirt. Like, no, we're not doing it. So
instead,
to appease me, I was like, we need to have a regular flush toilet, obviously. So to appease me, we did the black tank flush toilet on the first build.
Oh, wow.
Probably the most disgusting thing ever. I cannot stress this enough to people listening. Do not do a flush toilet. It's way grosser than a compost toilet. When it is time to dump, you cannot get to a dump station fast enough. Then you're waiting in line with a bunch of other people that are dumping their crap. People mess up all the time at dump stations. So there's inevitably all kinds of, like, depending on where you're at, how nice the area you're at, it's usually a disgusting situation. Not that I ever did it.
I was going to say, how many times did you have to dump the black tank?
Trevor did it every time, I'll be honest. It was just really gross. And every time he would do it, he'd be like, I wanted a compost. Anyway, it's fine. We've evolved as humans. This go around, it was not even a conversation. We did the compost toilet. I will never look back. It is so easy. As soon as you need to get rid of your pee, you can just like lift up the little pee jug, dump it anywhere that is suitable for the environment. Be kind to the earth, everyone. The dirt area where you know what goes is only needs to be changed out like 3 to 6 weeks, depending on how much you use it. 3 to 6 weeks. And there's like an electric fan, so it just pulls all of the smell every time. So there's never been a smell, not even when you're going to the bathroom. There's never a smell. It's so much less gross. There's no stress of trying to find a dump station. It's great.
And she's actually cleaned it herself this time.
I'm doing it myself, everyone. This is a wall.
It's so nice.
So yeah, compost all day, every day.
Compost.
I don't know why we don't have them in regular households, to be honest. The other thing that's so nice about it is that you're saving so much water because you have to conserve water when you live in this lifestyle, as anybody who's done it knows. So the amount of water that we're just saving personally is amazing. Never mind what you're doing for the environment. So yeah, compost every day. I mean, NatureHead should sponsor us. If you're listening, NatureHead.
You're listening, and they should sponsor my show too. So NatureHead, sponsor both of us.
Oh, NatureHead, call us.
Wait, but until you do, you suck.
Yeah.
Sponsor us, we'll change our mind.
Yeah.
There you go. So when your Nature's Head is full, and you're out in the, you're out camping or you're out in the wilderness, you can just dump it into the woods, essentially.
Yeah, you treat it like you would, actually go into the bathroom. So you dig a little bit of a hole.
Yeah.
Make sure there's no, residual like paper that didn't dissolve or that kind of stuff. But we don't actually put paper in the toilet anyways.
Yeah.
if we're in a town or something like that, and you just put it into a paper grocery bag.
Yeah.
And that can go right into a dumpster or something like that. I mean, after I can't remember what it was, after like 5 or 6 days,
it's completely gone.
It's broken down so much that
it's just dirt.
Yeah.
Wow.
And listen, I'm not a gross person. I just feel like people listening really need to understand that this is not gross, or I wouldn't do it. I promise.
Yeah, I mean that's it's a big thing for the tiny house lifestyle of using that composting toilet, and I think that's something that a lot of people are afraid of before they do it, and then most people are like you; they become, not just tolerant, but fans of it.
Right. So true.
Do you so Ray, you mentioned that your favorite feature is the fireplace. Trevor, do you have a favorite feature of your current build?
I mean, I'm a guy. Let's just straight up be honest. I'm a guy. I was a kid, and the only thing that happens to men when they grow up is they get a bigger wallet. Let's be honest.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if you're doing it right.
Yeah, that's about it. So being a guy, I was a kid. I loved big trucks. I liked looking at things that really were cool. They got my imagination going. That's what this truck does. That's what the old truck did. When I look at it, when I'm walking up to it or something like that, like it looks cool. The off-roading lights up front, the big bumper I built up front, the fact that we've got big honking knobby tires, the whole thing right now is still black.
I would say the look of it is your favorite. Like he did like a custom bumper so we have an agreement that the outside is Trevor's domain and the inside is my domain. So I got to decorate and do the look in the inside. He can't say anything about it, and then vice versa the outside. So the bumper on the outside.
That's funny. You still say things about the outside all the time.
Okay, I have opinions everywhere. That's true. But the bumper on the outside is totally badass looking. I would say more people ask about the bumper than other things on the outside. So if I was going to help you pick what your favorite is, I would say either the like safari lights or the bumper. Just the look of the outside.
Just the whole look of it. Yeah, that's my favorite part.
Nice. So you feel you're inspired by your home, which is awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you can't tell what it is. And so many people ask what it is. Somebody the other day asked us if it was a like an off-road taco truck or something. What did they ask?
Oh, they asked if it was a food truck.
No, but what did they say in front of it? They were like a zombie apocalypse food truck or something.
Oh, yeah.
And then somebody else, if we were like a paper shredding company.
Oh, yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, and then other people have asked like if we're like a specialized construction. You can't tell what it is from the outside.
Oh, no, there's these big black trucks that go everywhere that tear up trees that have been blown over, in storms and stuff like that. It's usually for the highways. And they're 18 wheelers that have a big box on the back to put all this debris, and they're all black. And I don't know why, because it's hot for them, but they're everywhere. And so like that's definitely something we've been asked about.
Yeah, and the
if
first
we're police or SWAT or military.
Yeah, the first one that we did on the LMTV, Trevor was working on the set of Walking Dead, and one of the directors for an episode was trying really hard to get the truck in the background of an episode just because it looked so ridiculous and zombie apocalypse.
Instead, they went with a much newer LMTV, but that's fine.
Lame.
What year was that original LMTV?
It was in 1998.
98. Wow.
Yeah.
And then you kind of talked about this earlier, just like you couldn't just bring it to.
Why you say wow? Like that's old.
What did I say? Wow.
Yeah, I'm a '90s kid. Be careful.
I mean,
why are you aging us?
Well, I'm an 80. I was born in the 80s, but just that it's hard to keep a vehicle for that long and have it be in good working condition. That's the only reason I said wow.
Yeah, well, we totally upgraded. This one's in 2008.
Right.
Sure, and to kind of like get with that a little bit, there is a big difference between light duty vehicles. So like that ambulance you were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a great vehicle, but depending on its age, you would have to go into the motor and tear it up a little bit. New seals, new valves, new injectors, whatever you need. I don't even know if it's diesel. Whereas the heavier duty ones, yeah, they cost a little bit more. Yeah, they're going to eat up a little bit more of your time mechanically and stuff like that. But the motors are built with 500,000 to 1,000,000 miles potential.
Wow.
Whereas most other vehicles on the smaller duty, are built 150,000 to 200,000 miles.
Right.
And so, with that, it's like I considered all that. I did a lot of research on the 3116 cat motor that was in the original LMTV. Ironically enough, this one's a 3127 motor, the C7. So it's still a Caterpillar. So I understand the majority of it, which makes it easier every time we've got an issue. As long as I can source a part, I can fix it in no time. But yeah, as long as you're taking care of it, making sure your oil's always clean, your air filters are always replaced and changed, your, fuel filters, all that kind of stuff. Keep her running. She'll keep going forever. There's a reason why, farmers are still using the same trucks they got in 1960 to work on their farm. It's bigger the longer they last.
But yes, 1998, that was kind of cool.
Well, the electrical system on that truck
was a little outdated.
Yeah, it sounds like the electrical system also came from 1998 in all the bad senses of the word.
100%.
Oh yeah.
Not
well, just remember, military. When everybody says like, oh, it's military grade. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, that's cool. Don't get me wrong, but military grade was the lowest bidder who came in and tried to undercut everything to give you the cheapest product with the cheapest material. Because nobody cares. Think about it this way. The military and the prisons both feed people the lowest possible grade food they can get away with, which a lot of times on the cases says not for human consumption.
Oof.
That's horrible.
Yes, there's a reason you are owned by your government at that time of stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I've been working with military people my entire life. I work with law enforcement people in so many different ways, and I love all of them. But every one of them will tell you the same thing. They're like, yeah, military grade, I avoid that shit left and right.
Yeah. Yeah, after a couple breakdowns, I was like, what do people do when this happens during a war? That's my mind.
They do have really cool tow trucks.
During a war?
Yep.
Sure. So I've been enjoying following you guys on Instagram. And you actually, I think it's your latest post. You they're very philosophical, the captions. You wrote, "When you're a nomad, time strangely doesn't exist. I've come to realize that our perception of time is almost entirely made up of the schedules we keep with other people around us." Can you elaborate on that and say a little bit more about what you mean there?
This is a great topic.
Really?
How deep you want to go? How long is this podcast?
I think.
Go ahead. It doesn't.
No, go ahead. How long is the podcast?
I usually keep the interviews to around an hour.
All right, so I've got like at least 2 weeks worth of theoretical physics, string theory, superstring theory, holographic theory. I'm a big fan of what's next. I'm a big fan of just getting my head in and not understanding what my fellow people understand, but really what's above us, what's the purpose, what's the next goal. And so I've been going all the way back to like, Bohr and Einstein and, all those guys, obviously almost 100 years ago now, and the different understandings they have and the different, physical things that we're starting to learn that are actually true. And they keep getting more and more intense. And that's exciting. And with that, we slowly have been understanding that time itself is an irrelevant concept unless you have to do with what's important about when the sun goes up or when the sun goes down, or what's important about aging. Like all those things are the only reason why we really have to deal with time, other than get up and go to work by 9. You can come home at 5. Make sure you put in 49 weeks worth of work for every 52. Things like that just blow my mind. So me constantly regurgitating and not have anybody else to talk to, I dump on Ray. So that starts the concept of how time is irrelevant and that gravity bends time and all that kind of jazz. And then she slowly, digests it and then comes up with different understandings and different things. And one of the things she comes up with is incredibly intelligent. Why do we have to look at life as I have to do this by this age and this by that age and da 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 da? Yet everybody we know who's incredibly successful says, hey, here's the playbook. Throw it away. Do something unique. Do something original. Get away from that constant understanding of we have to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, time kind of dissolves a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the romance parts of road life is this idea that time is sort of irrelevant when you choose this lifestyle. Because in that post, I also wrote about how living the lifestyle full time is not like camping. And I think there's a giant misconception that, people that live out of their van or school buses or, whatever your vehicle is, are just on this long-term camping trip where you're just making fires every night and cooking s'mores and meeting with people. But it's actually so much more involved than that. There's a lot of hardship that goes into the lifestyle. There's a lot of unknowns. You're really trading the hustle and bustle, stress life of your normal routine for this totally different type of stress. And it's a stress of just really being aware of yourself all the time and your surroundings and really being patient with whatever life throws at you, because every day on the road is different.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of come to this realization that, time, so to speak, like Trevor was saying, really only exists in this, space of our brain where we're measuring time by the schedules that we're keeping and our normal day-to-day routine. Whereas when you live on the road, you don't have a normal day-to-day routine. So there is no schedule to keep. So time just sort of becomes irrelevant. And so you stop keeping track of it and it stops mattering as much, which is one of the best
lunch
parts.
At noon.
Yeah, it's one of the best parts of the lifestyle because you just kind of listen to your body almost. It's like Trevor is saying, like, I don't, in your normal day routine, it's like you have your lunch break, you all sit down to dinner, you wake up the next morning for your 9 a.m. meeting. There's, a rhythm that you have to have.
Yeah.
But with this lifestyle, you can really take the time to listen to your body. And, you asked us that in the beginning when we were doing a sound check, what did you eat for breakfast? Well, today when I woke up, I wasn't hungry and I didn't need breakfast, but around, 3:00 today, we were hungry. And so we ended up making a big lunch/breakfast then. And so you just kind of, time just doesn't matter.
I love it. Well, I feel like that's probably a pretty good place to leave it. Maybe you could just, before we go, tell us, is there anything that you're working on or anything that you want to kind of get out there and share with the listeners?
I mean, if we want to share anything with everyone, Trevor's, in the middle of something that we are really looking forward to with this lifestyle is the ability to kind of slow down and focus on passion projects.
Mm-hmm.
So this time is allowing, one of the main reasons why we were so anxious to get on the road, this time is allowing for Trevor to finish writing his movie script. I'm working on a book right now. So yeah, I would just love to share those things with everybody. And also I just love the community that comes with tiny living and living on the road. So I'm always looking for people to reach out and introduce themselves so that we can connect with them. So I mean, if I could ask for anything from this podcast, it would just be that people would definitely reach out to us and, introduce themselves and camp together.
Awesome.
Let's do life together.
Well, Trevor and Ray of Wazumu Life, thank you so much for being guests today. This was really fun.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
this is
seriously.
very cool.
Thank you so much to Ray and Trevor of Wazumu Life for being guests on the show today. You can find the show notes and lots of pictures of both of their rigs at thetinyhouse.net/209. Again, that's thetinyhouse.net/209. Well, that's all for this week. I'm your host, Ethan Waldman, and I'll be back next week with another episode of the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast.